obviously be doing surface palpation of the skull is what our first slide is. The occiput is going to be in the back of your noggin. You are going to have a bump on the back of your head, which is called the external occipital protuberance, and it's that little peak on the back of your head. It's also called the inion. And across from that is going to be your nuchal line, and that's where your suboccipital muscles attach. So for people who have chronic headaches and you think it's due to the suboccipitals, it's going to be really important to be able to palpate the inion, and then that's your landmark for finding that nuchal line. So the nuchal line is just an attachment area. The skull, this skull doesn't show it, but bone forms based on imposed demand. And so if for someone who's had chronic suboccipital tightness, that ridge will be pretty prominent, okay? Parietal bone is going to be superior, right, and posterior. There's not a whole lot happening on parietal. That happens to be the part of the brain that I care the most about, but this, from the skull perspective, it's kind of boring. For the temporal bone, that's going to be our lateral part of our skull, and we have some key structures there. So we have our mastoid process. Does anyone know of a big anterior neck muscle that has mastoid in it? Chest. Oh my gosh. Okay. So that will forever be said like in that voice in my head. Thanks to you and Susie Kundrat. Now I've got voices stuck in my head. So here's the mastoid. So that's going to be the big bump behind your ear. Okay. Zygomatic arch is going to be your cheekbones. Okay. It's going to be right along your cheek. The reason that it's important to be able to palpate your zygomatic arch is because our sinuses are in there. And so if you're trying... Sorry. Of all the funny things I said today, you haven't laughed. Is that you laugh about? So if you're trying to find out the source of headaches, you may want to be palpating the zygomatic arch. We also can have people who will have fractures of the zygomatic arch. And then the styloid process. Don't look at the styloid process. The styloid process is clear on this side. So Catherine, you're going to zoom in. It's this knob right here. Okay? So we've got the mastoid here, the ramus of the mandible here. This is the styloid process.
Can you show us on this side too?
Got her.
Or you could get your little pushy and go to the other side. Just for you.
Oh, I see it. Or you can feel that.
Mastoid,
Yeah, you can.
ramus,
Right here. Hurts.
styloid process.
Oh, I feel it.
Okay? Now,
Oh.
okay?
That shit hurts.
Styloid, I'm sorry, mastoid, ramus of mandible. Do you see the styloid in there? It's the little pointy thing. That little bugger all gets in our way because we are going to be palpating the T1 transverse process in here, in this gap. And if you instead push on the styloid process, it's going to hurt and it's not going to feel very good. Okay? So you need to know the difference between the styloid process and the transverse process of C1. All right? And then we've got our frontal bone here. Right? They need more. Their head is, they've been slacking. So, I was expecting to get things thrown at me. Okay, so the mandible is your lower jaw. Okay, so the whole lower jaw is your mandible. And then there are parts of your mandible. So the body is really, if you put your hand on the front of your face, that's the body of the mandible. The base is going to be if you stuck your chin on, like in concrete, and you made that impression, it's that shape, that horseshoe shape is going to be your base, okay? Your submandibular fossa is going to be around and under the base. Now, this is important because we will be palpating for lymph nodes in this area. Okay? Now, the angle of the mandible is right here. For people who have TMJ problems, your masseter sits right there. So for some of you, if you clench your teeth, you can feel a very wavy muscle, which is your masseter. Okay, and it'll be right there. The ramus is what comes up to the condyle of the mandible, and the condyle is what actually articulates with the temporal bone. Okay, so the condyle is actually the part of the temporal mandibular joint. This joint is a very odd joint because there's a lot of translation prior to rotation, so when we get to that, I will have you feel that, okay? The coronoid process, if you can only feel it, it's hidden underneath the zygomatic arch, and you can only feel it if the person opens their mouth, and then the coronoid process pops out. Okay? So, like to lie on your back, and let's take your hair up. Do you want to up or just up? Up is fine. And I gave you this pillow, and I'm actually going to take it away. It was nice while it lasted. Right?
Say hi. Hi.
I'm going to give this to you. I'll do something to make you feel a little better. Okay. So we started with the occiput and the inion and the nuchal line, which already seems like a long time ago, right? So what I'm going to do is cup her head with my hands. And my hand is at the base of her skull. Do you feel that?
Yep.
Okay. Does that tickle?
A little bit.
It's a little weird. All right. Well, and I have to. Can you say the alphabet for me, please?
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q,
So,
R, S,
Gabe or Luke, can you see anything significant when she says the alphabet from
T,
your end?
V, W, X, Y, and Z.
Okay, so her jaw, her mandible, is Jane to the left as she speaks. So the reason that I thought that was interesting is because I could feel that she has some asymmetry in her suboccipital muscles, so I could pretty much guarantee she was going to have some weirdness in her mandible. And you proved me right. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So I'm going to speak about you in the third person.
It's
Sorry. I do value you as a human, but right now
we're good.
I value your noggin more. So she's got a little bit of swelling up in there so that when I'm pressing in her suboccipitals, it feels squishy. Okay, so maybe she's done a lot of forward looking down lately.
Gotta get off that
Okay. Off the sofa.
cell phone.
Okay. Oh, cell phone. Okay. So I've now slid my fingers up. This is your inion. Do you feel that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so if I just come lateral to the inion, that's going to be where your muscles attach. Now, again, Aubrey, can you feel like there's no give on this side?
Yep.
Whereas on this side, it's pretty free, but this side's like, no, not going. Okay, so I am just inferior to that nuchal line, and I'm feeling the tension in those muscles. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and put her head down. If this was an exam, I would start with her suboccipitals and check out her OA, and then I would actually go down her cervical spine in this position, is how I would do it normally clinically. The slides are organized around the cranium, so we'll go ahead and stick with that. Her mandible is just gonna be that big, long, kind of blunt, bony structure right behind the ear. Again, that's a good landmark. If I come forward, I'm hitting the ramus of her mandible. Okay. Now, again, do you feel how it's pretty shallow here and it's pretty deep here?
Yep.
Yeah. So, yeah. So she's got some really interesting asymmetries, and my guess is she's not the only one. So you're going to want to try those on each other. I'm just dripping sweat here. It's really crazy. I'm nervous, I guess. Yeah, in here. So to me, these are all interesting things, and they all are putting together a picture of someone that we could do some things with that would make her feel a little bit better, although you may not be feeling bad. I don't know. But she's definitely got some things going in her upper cervical spine. So if I go in between that, the ramus of the mandible and the mastoid process, I'm in that spot. Now, if I wanted to find her styloid process, I could. So it's there on that side. Sorry.
That's okay.
And it's there on that side. When we're going for her T1, we're going to want to get off of that. We're going to want to be anterior to that so that we can actually feel the spine.
Is it T1
Okay.
or C1?
C1.
Okay.
Sorry, have I been saying T1?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for Emily. Thank you for correcting me. Okay. So, zygomatic arch. As part of the frontal bone, we're going to be palpating here. Okay. Then for mandible, for the body, we're going to be palpating along here. If I was going to go into the submandibular fossa for lymph nodes, what I don't want you to do, don't palpate both hands. That came up, that you can't feel things with both hands at the same time. So even if you're palpating and wanting to look for symmetry, concentrate on one hand and then concentrate on the other hand. But if you're moving both hands, it's too much information for you to process, and so you're gonna miss out. I've only watched 3 of the videos, which have been quite good. The one thing I've noticed is because it's a video, the palpation hasn't been as pretty as I would like. Like, it's pretty fast, and it's pretty like, oh yeah, I'm there. That's what I palpated, but not really truly palpating it. Okay, so that's submandibular fossa. Like I said, the angle is here. Can you clench your teeth for me? So this is your masseter right there, and you're tighter on your left than your right. Okay. I can follow that up, the ramus up, okay, to her condyle. Now, do you notice my hands? I'm using all of my fingers, okay, and I'm pressing. And now what I'd like you to do is open your mouth as far as you can. Okay, good, and come back. So
That's so fast.
So what I want you to feel is you're gonna feel that translation. Am I pulling your hair? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
You're gonna feel that translation of the condyle move forward, and then you're gonna feel that rotation. And what you want to be doing is watching the base of the mandible to see if it deviates to one side or the other, and see if you feel more movement on one side than the other. You guys are gonna be sticking your goniometers in each other's mouths yet today, okay? So we'll be taking some measurements of this, but right now I want you to just look at the quality of the movement. Okay? And I think that's our whole list. The next slide, can you go to the next slide? Because is it pulses on the next one? Because we can do those right away too. Oh no, let's save those. Those are